Obtaining a quality education is the foundation to improving people's lives and sustainable development. Quality education is also among the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. Here in Nigeria, more than 25 million sit in public school classrooms. Will the 2020 education budget of the federal government improve the quality of education? A man with the answers, Babajide Gusonwo, is here with us tonight. Babajide, okay. Our crystal ball is back. Thanks for joining us. So public analysts have debated, and you know this, the advantages and disadvantages of the Almajiri system of education. And we saw that in the report. However, there's little or no controversy that education needs more funding. What do the facts about education reveal?
You're right. There's no controversy that education needs more funding. But I would like us to start from a slightly different perspective. One of the founding fathers of the United States, Benjamin Franklin, he said that an investment in education pays the best interest. So tonight, let's look at how much interest are we earning on education. And to look at that, I would like us to look at the model of the United Kingdom. They have 8 million students, Amarachi, 8 million students in their public education system. Their government budgets 19 trillion naira annually. So for one moment, imagine that, 19 trillion naira for just 8 million students. Let me make myself very clear. Here's what it means. It means what the United Kingdom budgets for one student is what the Nigerian government budgets for 130 students. In other words, imagine one student in a classroom in the United Kingdom. What he gets from the United Kingdom's government is what children sitting in 5 classrooms in Nigeria.
That's a pretty bleak picture.
And so clearly, education isn't paying so much interest in the lives of children. So the right question is, how do we get more funding into education? I think one way is for us to significantly consider or seriously consider launching our green bonds.
Yeah, but where's
our education bonds, I mean.
Yeah, but where's much of the fund going into? Is it the primary, secondary, or the tertiary education?
So let's take a look at where education, look at the heart of education in Nigeria. And if we're able to look at that carefully, you'll see that it is the primary school system. What do I mean? There are 22 million children in the public primary school system. That is taking a lot of money. Yeah. The second category is to look at those 10 million children that should be in school but are out of school. And so the government is also spending a lot of money to get children into school. And then we have 5 million students in public junior secondary schools. But we see that even before we get to the tertiary education, these 3 categories are the most important categories in our educational system, and that is the heart of funding. That is where most of the money is going to, and that is where most of the money will most likely continue to go to in the short to medium term.
Well, you know, we hear the government talk about how important education is. I mean, this administration started off with the school feeding program, you know, to encourage kids to stay in school. But I don't know if we're really seeing the impact of that. But if education is so important, why is it not prioritized as such?
Because the government never really said it was going to be a priority. Remember in 2015, the priority were 3 things: corruption, the economy, and security. And even if you look at the most recent speech of the president on Independence Day, October 1st, corruption had 9 mentions, security, 7 mentions, economy, 5 mentions, education, 1 mention. And so the government still has its priority. Education is important, do not get me wrong. However, the priority of the government in all of what it is doing is still corruption, to fight corruption, security, and the economy. So one of the other ways we could look at this is to look at how much funding is going into education, the priority of the government. And if we look carefully at that, what you find and what it reveals is that in 2015, education got 11% of the federal government's national budget. Today, in the 2020 proposed budget, at 541 billion naira, education is only 5% of that budget. So looking at how much is being budgeted for education relative to the national budget, it also shows to us that education is important for this government. However, the priority of the government is still corruption, security, and the economy. And so we see much more money going into these areas, especially defense.
Food for thought.
But don't forget, in the final analysis, education, in the words of Benjamin Franklin, always pays the best interest. And so we expect that the government should increase funding that goes to education, because that is where the future of Nigeria belongs.
Babajide, thank you so much for speaking with us tonight. Always learn a great lot from you when you're here.
Pleasure
Thanks
is always
again.
mine.